and happy National Ag Week. We're here at the Fairplex in Pomona for Grow Pomona, which is a brand new festivity that hopefully will get legs and carry us on for many, many years to come. So why are we here today? Well, we've got some fascinating information and ideas for a potential problem, or maybe we're gonna head it off. We're gonna talk right now about something that's so exciting. I gotta ask you a question. What do you think is the most dangerous critter in the world? I mean, super dangerous. What do we think of? We think of, what, sharks? We think of bears? We think of just some kind of animal, right? Well, oddly enough, the number one and most scariest animal that's out there really isn't an animal at all. It's an insect. And it's about 1/4 of an inch in size. It's a puny little thing. We call them mosquitoes. And if you're west of the Mississippi, you probably call them mosquitoes. Well, with that being said, mosquitoes are also a critter that has been found some 99 million years ago. They found a sampling of one encapsulated inside a piece of sap out of Canada, and they did carbon dating on it. So it's really old at the same time. Now, how in the world can a mosquito be so dangerous? Well, oddly enough, a mosquito is probably the most worthless creature you could ever imagine, because there have been so many studies that show that mosquitoes really don't do anything other than attack people and attack other critters and attack other animals. Birds will eat mosquitoes, but they don't need mosquitoes to survive on. And needless to say, we don't need them. And mosquitoes, they're not good for the garden. They don't do any kind of pollination or anything like that. So why are they around? I don't know, but they do come around. Now, what's really interesting about mosquitoes is that only 20% of the population in the world will ever get bitten by a mosquito. But I can guarantee here, by a show of hands, how many people have ever been bitten by a mosquito? Yeah, we all have. So obviously that number is a whole lot higher than that. So mosquitoes, they come around you. Now, why and whom do they come around first? Well, first and foremost, here's some kind of fun facts about mosquitoes. If you're female, if you're blonde, now you gotta be a natural blonde, chances are, and you have blue eyes, chances are you're a great candidate for mosquitoes to come towards you and start munching down on you. Now, remember, when we think about we get a mosquito bite, it's not like they come in and they just take a big chunk of skin out of you or anything like that. What they do is actually it's pretty fascinating. They'll turn around and they'll come in with their needled nose, we'll call it. It has a big old name that's this long on here. They come in, they land, they'll take and they burrow a hole right into your skin, and they'll start slurping up your blood. You know what's really fascinating about this? Only the females do it. Then they'll take and they'll burrow away inside the skin like that, and at the same time, they leave like a saliva and a juicy kind of stuff back behind. That's why you get that welt, and it starts to itch and scratch. Ugh, it's horrible. Okay, so we found out that 20% of the people get it, 100% over here, but at the same time, there are some other characteristics and factors that happen when, and that decides whether or not you're gonna get bitten by a mosquito or not. Now, if we come over here, and we'll just give you an example right here, we've got a guy who's exercising away, right? Look at that, you're doing a good job there, I'll tell you that much. Oddly enough, if you exercise, you are emitting certain scents out of your body, and a mosquito is going to be coming toward you. Now, oddly enough, you know, you went like this, right? He went like this just now. That actually is pretty telltale, because while you're exercising, you start breathing more heavier, because you're breathing heavier, right? So as you're breathing heavier, you're letting out carbon dioxide. Mosquitoes are attracted by the carbon dioxide from your exercising. So that's one thing that they'll become attracted to. Another thing they become attracted to is chocolate. Huh? Now, girls love to eat chocolate. But what's really kind of interesting about it, they'll actually become attracted to the chocolate that is being emitted. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that when you eat chocolate, you get excited about it. Okay, so there you have that. All right, here's something else that's kind of fun for all of you out there that are kind of, what do you got over here? Look at that. Oh, you got some dirty socks. Okay, so you're gonna take and you'll put your dirty socks on, right? All right. Oddly enough, mosquitoes will end up coming around because you emit a certain smell. There's actually, if you ever notice this, you can get bit, and a lot of people will get bit around your ankles and around your wrists like this. That's because these are areas that emit certain scents and smells. And these certain scents and smells, the mosquitoes come to. There's also a bacteria that mosquitoes like, and it comes from, and it's more prevalent in those areas where you do happen to sweat a little more. Yeah, I don't want any more mosquitoes. Here's another thing. If you happen to have really, hey, we got royalty around us. If you happen to have bright clothes, there's studies been shown that the Smithsonian Institute showed that if you have bright colored clothes, and it could be oranges and blue, not blues, but usually pinks and hot colors, then you're gonna end up having a chance of getting bitten a whole lot more. So that in itself is kind of a fun thing to know too. So what do we do to protect ourselves? That's the whole key here. How many ways are there to protect ourselves from a mosquito? Well, we're gonna go through some of those ways right now. First, what I'd like to show you here is this particular plant. Plants in nature are really kind of fun. This right here is a citronella plant, and it's also known as a mosquito plant. Now, if you were to take and you were to crush this and smell it, it has this citrus-like scent on there. And that's a key thing for mosquitoes, by the way. Mosquitoes, remember when I said that they were attracted by that CO2? Well, I don't know if we could do this or not, but can our cameraman turn around and see those people that are way over there? Okay, there's people that are way over there. If you go to that very last tent, that's around 200 feet. And that 200 feet is about how far away a mosquito can detect you. You could be standing right here, it's gonna go over there, you're yapping like I am 100 miles an hour, that mosquito's gonna come and it could beeline it right, it'll go straight to you. They're mosquitoes. They're gonna come right to you because you're emitting all this CO2 and you're sweating, you got the stink, you got the chocolate, you're from the workout, you have all this going for you, they're attracted to that. So if you were to put up protective barriers, this is a natural way of doing it in the landscape. Now, we were talking here prior to us on the air over here, and we'll be talking with Kelly in a little bit, and she says, well, is that possible to have it like that, just the one plant? I says, well, if the truth was known, you really have to have this plant all around your landscape in order for it to really continually have a protective barrier around you. Other natural ways and doing citronella and stuff are these right here. This is really kind of a fun thing. These are citronella candles, and this is kind of like a punk or a what do they call these things? Not only punks, well, whatever they're called. Anyway, you take them and then you light them. You're supposed to light them. And incense, that's it. Thank you very much. Obviously, they don't let me play with fire out here. Okay, this isn't working, but trust me, it works. They never give me things that work around here. You know what? It's possible that, oh, there you go. Is that cool? Can you see it? Can you see it? I can see it. It's coming over here. Now see how that's permeating through? If you were to take several of these things and put them around your yard, it would take and permeate, and then the smoke and the smell of the citronella keeps them away. Remember, they want that CO2 that's coming out of you and those certain smells that you're taking and you're creating. Okay, you can go to the market and you could buy these different products that are in cans. These are not what we call natural, they're not organic. There's a chemical in here, it's called DEET. And the name is really this long if you try to figure out what it is, but DEET is the short stuff. It's the safest thing that is known that the FDA allows us to use to spray on ourselves. You would take and you could be liberal about it. If you're gonna be taking it and putting it, you don't never wanna spray it on your face. You wanna spray it on your hands first and then rub it all over the place in those areas. That works for a period of time as well. If you're going to be active and stuff, you have to keep on reapplying it when you go into the house. Then you could take and make sure that you wash yourself off it, because it is a chemical. You know, you have a lot of these groups think, well, you know, there's carcinogenic and all that. It's a buyer beware market. You got to decide for yourself. But it's been around for a bajillion years, and they've been using it for that particular process. But if you want to take and really go the organic way, we've got a princess with us here today that's going to help us out a little bit. Thank you very much for joining us.
You.
And oh, we didn't get you on a microphone, so you're gonna have to yell real loud, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so remember I said that the mosquito doesn't like certain scents? They don't like fruity smells. They don't like peppermint. They don't like mints. They don't like the citronella. So one of the things that we can do is we can use all natural products. And right here to your right, this right here is a mint plant. Now there's a lot of different types of mints that are out there. There's some like 30 or 40 different varieties. And this right here is a peppermint plant. And go ahead and take a couple of leaves off over here. And we'll show you one of the best ways that we can take and we can do this. Well, first, if you could take, I got this DEET on me, it just smells like crazy. Can you smell it? Yeah, it's pretty stinky stuff. Okay, so take your leaf and I want you to crush it. Just take and crush your leaf real well, and then what do you smell?
Mint.
Yeah, you see how it just comes out? Okay, so if you were to take this and get a couple more leaves here. Yeah, bust something off there. Okay, now take it and crush it real hard like this. What you're doing is that you're releasing the essential oils inside of this. Now, you could take this now, and can you feel it getting kind of smooth because you get moisture in there? Now you take it and you rub it on your arms. And you should smell very minty. Take a smell. Ah, okay? So your mosquitoes, they're not going to like that kind of stuff. So what we can do is this as well. We can take and we can create our own organic insecticide. How cool is that, right? We have to start off with the mint. So with our mint, let's start stripping off some leaves and put some leaves in here. And we could just bust them off the plant. Now, as we take them off here, I want to kind of crush them and then throw them in. Crush them and throw them in. So the whole deal about this is that you don't have to really worry too much about it being exact. You could use a half a cup of this. You can use a gallon of it. It doesn't matter. So once that you have it here, what we need to do is we need to put a little water. So we're going to take this little bit of water, and we could use about however much that is. I want this to soak for about 2 days. Right? Because it's going to release all the juices out of there. We want the juices to get inside that water. Once we've done that, what we're going to do is, can we have the funnel here? This is going to be amazing. Let's see if we can do this without me getting all wet. Take your water, and we're going to take all the juice parts, and we're going to throw it right into there. Is that working? Don't fill it up too much. We don't want it to go all over the place. Okay, see, oh, perfect. Oh, that's awesome. Look at this. I've never had a princess help me. Well, I did. We had one over here earlier. Okay, so now that we have this, what we can do is we would take, and well, I don't know if this works. Okay, see, now that you have this, you put it on the spray mode. See how that works? And, you know, let's do this. Can you smell it? Yeah, there's a little bit of hint. Ah, that's so good. But that right there is a homemade concoction. There you go. Thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome. So there you have it. You have a lot of different ways that you can take and you can ward off these critters. And that's what's really kind of fun. If you want to do it on a larger type of scale, you can do the same kind of solution that we created over here. You put it in here and then you spray it on. You just have to remember that you have to apply it and reapply it on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Organic materials, you have to do that too. Natural things, you have to do that too. They don't stay around for longer periods of times like these chemicals do. Now the other thing is this, is that you may come around and you may find some of these like bands and stuff like this. Again, it's a buyer beware market. The idea is that you put these little bands on and the stink is supposed to permeate around you. I would actually work with this before I would do something like that. And then finally, when it comes to protecting yourself from a mosquito, it's so important to understand that you need to cover up. We're talking long sleeves, feel free to wear a hat, put something, grow a beard, I don't care, whatever it is. Cover and protect yourself as best as possible. And the reason for that is because we have in the United States and worldwide a very aggressive mosquito that we're going to learn about right now, and it is causing all kinds of problems worldwide, isn't it? How you doing?
Hi Nick.
You know what, this lady over here taught me something very, very important. We actually filmed once before, but we're not going to see that until this next autumn. So I thought it was very important to bring Kelly here with us because she's with the LA Vector Control. And I learned things by going over there, and you're going to learn it when you see that. But we're going to kind of tease you with some of the things so we can do things that we can do right now to be aware of what's going on. Because we have this Aedes mosquito. Now this Aedes mosquito does something so different that other mosquitoes don't do. It bites and attacks during the daytime.
During the daytime, yes. They're very aggressive day-biting mosquitoes, which is not common. Our common mosquitoes bite more in the evening and early morning hours. And this makes life outdoors a little bit more challenging now in Southern California.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it does make it tough. I kind of fit the mold of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, so the mosquitoes are always chewing on me, so.
They like me as well.
They like you as well.
Yes.
So we do have to be careful about this. Now, this Aedes mosquito, how big is it?
They are tiny. So these, in the jar, emergent jar, you can see some adult mosquitoes in here. These are our common Culex mosquitoes, the ones that transmit West Nile virus. The Aedes mosquitoes that we're talking about are about half of this size. So they're about 1/4 inch or so in size maximum. And they're going to be tiny, black and white little insects flying around during the daytime biting. They're pretty stealthy biters, so you may not actually notice them biting you until you get the big welt later on that evening.
Okay, so we don't know that they're necessarily around. So that right there tells us that we have to be prepared with many of the things that we discussed prior to us even venturing out. Are there certain areas in the Southland where mosquitoes aren't as prevalent, for instance, at the beach or in the mountains, or?
Well, that's true. There are species that live down by the beach, but if it's very windy, they're not going to be very active. They don't like high wind areas. They don't like a lot of our really hot desert areas unless you have a home in the desert where you grow a lot of plants and you keep it nice and lush and humid. They like humidity, so that's what tends to attract them into a particular property, is a lot of really humid environments.
So all mosquitoes enjoy that kind of environment?
They do.
So therefore, when we have plants like these right here, we have a lot of, this right here, the bromeliad, has a very interesting growing characteristic where one of the things that you're going to find in a bromeliad is that it enjoys having little pockets of water being held within inside the plant itself. If we were to get a microscope and look and really get in, in fact, you don't even have to do that. I don't think we could see this. Maybe you can, Mr. Camera person here. Can you see how I'm jiggling that right there? There's water that's sitting right in there. That right there is a perfect place for this kind of breeding to happen, isn't it?
Right, these are the immature mosquitoes, and they just need a tiny little bit of water to complete their entire life cycle. So the female mosquito will lay her eggs in that little pocket of water. The eggs will hatch out as the larval stage, and they'll molt about 3 or 4 times and pupate and then fly back out of that plant. So that's all the water they need to complete an entire life cycle.
Wow. So in this particular sample that you have right here, you've got all that activity, they've laid their eggs, and you've got like an upside down cone in here. So once they hatch, they're kind of hanging out on the top over here.
They're hanging out in the top.
Okay, some of them are doing, have an acute state of rigor mortis in there, I see, but you have a lot of them that are still alive.
Right. Yeah, so the life cycle is pretty quick. They go from egg to adult in about 5 to 7 days in the summer months, and then the adults only live maybe 2 weeks in the summer, so it's a pretty quick life cycle.
Okay, now during the daytime, these types of mosquitoes, they're actually resting and they're sleeping. And they're resting in these kind of areas right here. They're trying to find the humidity. They're trying to find a cool place to kind of hang out. Again, it's a rest, sleep kind of a thing. If you were to disturb them, of course, they'll wake up. Lawn areas are, ironically enough, if they're oversaturated, that's a great place for mosquitoes to breed and to kind of hang out.
Yep, and we find them too even hanging out by people's doors. If they have a nice little patio porch thing by their door, they'll just kind of hunker down underneath the eaves and any kind of cool shady spot.
Therefore, that's another great reason why you gotta be certain that your screens are properly tended to. You don't have any holes, because these things are little. They'll make their way into the tiniest little crevices.
They absolutely do.
Okay, so here's an area that's here, and in fact, here's another example that you have here where they will kind of migrate to.
Right, and this came from a house, and so these mosquitoes will follow people indoors, and they'll spend their entire life cycle living indoors. So if you have a vase like this where you're rooting plants, or even vases of flowers that sit for more than a week, you can have mosquitoes living in very happily indoors.
Okay, so let me ask you about something like that then. Right? It's taking me totally off course here, but it actually has to do with one of our volunteers that came up, our He-Man.
Yes.
He asked a really good question, because he's a school teacher, and he's creating this garden, and within the garden he's going to have some potentially stagnant water, and the water is actually being used for a wick system within the vegetable garden. I mean, it's a really neat idea what he's doing. So you have something like that, or if you have something like this, what is the best way to, or what is a way, not necessarily the best way, because there's a lot of different ways.
Right.
What is a way to make sure that the population stay down?
Well, one really natural biological control is mosquito fish. And the districts have mosquito fish, all vector control districts have them, and anybody that has a rain barrel or a pond or some kind of a watering system like that stays for a long time, you can put mosquito fish in that water source, and they'll very happily munch up these larvae.
Okay, mosquito fish they get about this big.
Yeah, they're ginormous.
They're huge. They're huge. They get about this big. That's all they do. Now, do you have to
they're very tiny.
Do you have to take and you have to feed these?
No. Well, actually, if you have algae in the water and some plant material in the water, or mosquito larvae, you don't have to feed them at all. If it's a brand new water source, you may have to feed them for a period of time until you build up some kind of natural biologicals in there.
Okay, since we're still in the mode that we have water, these right here are these little dunket things that you throw inside the water. So this is good for stagnant water as well.
Sure, yes, and you can put these in your rain barrels, in any vases or ponds. Same concept. It's a natural bacteria. When mosquito larvae eat it, they're not able to survive it. Okay. It destroys their makeup.
But you can't put this inside these little individual holes in here.
It'd be tough. You could.
Really tough. But here's something that I learned that day that we did do the filming is that under normal circumstances, when we were chasing down the West Nile virus, it's a little bit different than it is for the Zika.
Correct.
Because on something like this, I typically would have said, well, just get yourself some chlorine, wash it out, and you're okay. And boy, did you zap me on that one.
Well, the challenge with these new mosquitoes is that the West Nile mosquitoes, they lay their eggs on the surface of the water, you dump it out, the mosquitoes die. With these Aedes mosquitoes, they lay their eggs attached to the side of this container. So if you dump it out, the eggs are going to remain there alive for several years, and they'll hatch later.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want to thank you very much for being on with us.
Sure, thank you.
You know, one of the really exciting things that we have going on is the fact that you can get information not only from the LA County Vector Control website, but we've linked it up through Things Green. Go to the website, thingsgreen.com, type in where it says blog or anything, type in mosquitoes, and then you'll see this great blog. It links to them, what they're doing. They give their ideas and information. We give our ideas and information. And it's really important to be certain that we understand all the principles that we talked about, from protecting ourselves before we go out, because this mosquito, this Aedes mosquito, and it's not Aedes like 1980s, it's spelled differently. Go to the website and you'll find out, is really important. You have to be aware of it. Be safe out there when you're gardening. I'm Nick Federoff. Thank you very much for joining us today.